Every single human being on this planet has a divine purpose. And it's not to just live and be. I think that a lot of people kind of can get away with living a half-hearted or half-committed life if they think that the point of life is to just live. And there is a deeper truth where that comes from, where being present and being connected to yourself is living. So that's why when we're talking about living, I'm talking about lucid living. If you're living lucid, you're living connected to who you truly are, and you're expressing yourself at a very high level. So to find your divine purpose is the mission of all of us. It's all of our mission, because that's where we start to become creators, where we begin our journey, the journey that our soul wanted us to create, to have, to be involved with here. So if you believe that you have a divine purpose, then you also will understand that that purpose is within you. In this video, I'm actually gonna guide you through that process of finding your divine purpose and some resources that help me out so that you can go out and discover your true purpose. So before getting into the guide, I want to talk about what it feels like to be connected to your purpose. For those who wonder the difference between where they're at now and what it could look like for them in the future. Being connected to your divine purpose is being connected to your divine self. It's understanding the plan that you came with in this incarnation before you were even born. It's about the soul plan. It's about bringing your soul into physical reality to express yourself at the highest level. Finding your purpose is a very lofty goal. It is only for those who want to live a life with a deep sense of meaning and also a deep commitment to service, because connecting to your heart, to your soul, will eventually lead you to want to serve the world. And so you are constantly going to be asking yourself when you're on your journey to your purpose, how can I best serve the world? How can my individual tendencies, my experiences, my story, my trauma, my personality, my astrology, how can all of these things come together to create the unique individual purpose that I have? And to be able to commit to that process is a scary one. And that's why finding your purpose, understanding that it's about service and that it's about you finding out who you are at the highest degree so that you can help people at the highest degree, that is something that only a few people get to achieve in their lifetime. This is a process that, when not taken consciously and when not understood clearly, can take years. This is when we're talking about people, once they retire, they discover that they were meant to do a specific thing. A lot of people will mention that your purpose, what you're really meant to do, the work that you're meant to do, well, you'll discover it once you're like 50 years old. And that's kind of the general plan and the general story that is told. But I know, from my experience, I know that you can discover your purpose right now, and you can be connected to that, and you can live a life where you're pursuing what you're truly meant to do rather than chasing money, rather than chasing a dream that you've been conditioned into thinking is for you, rather than chasing societal standards. Imagine living a life freely, only being guided by your soul, by your heart. And that is a life that only a few can live. And if that's something that you are committed to doing, then keep watching the video, because I got hella information for you, my guy or girl. I got you. All right. So the first thing, I'm gonna give you a general outline, a few stories that will serve as a guiding mechanism for you to kind of fit your personal story into. So the first thing that I think is essential to finding your purpose is understanding your temperament, understanding your personality. Knowing your temperament means understanding what makes you tick, what makes How do you differentiate yourself from those around you? Something as simple as a personality test can point you to in that direction. So if you're an introvert, maybe your purpose can be found through introversion. Or if you're an extrovert, maybe your purpose can be found through extroversion, putting yourself out there. It is essential to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can find them out pretty quickly through psychology. Psychology has dedicated lots of time and research into this field of discovering the personality. And so when you understand your personality, you can actually start to separate yourself from those around you. A lot of people can be walking around, and if you don't even understand your tendencies, you'll find yourself getting lost in the crowd. By discovering your tendencies, you can even start to think about what are some careers that are well suited for you, what are some good partners that are well suited for you, some specific work environments that you are more likely to gravitate towards. All of these things can be found through understanding your temperament and personality. So that is kind of like the foundation. And I want to share also another thing when discussing the general approach that one should take when looking for their purpose. It's of extreme importance to understand that what you're looking for is deep. You're playing it big. You're taking a huge risk, a huge gamble in following your heart and cutting through everything to unlock your heart. So it is essential to understand that the information and the resources you are using are operating at that same frequency of depth. Because if not, you're going to be living a mediocre life. And that's not what we want here. I'm going to give you a comparison. There was 2 books that I would like to use to explain this concept. The first book was Finding Your Element and The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. These 2 books were books that I came across in the beginning of my journey to finding my purpose. And both of these authors are pretty, well known, at least in their field. And these books were deemed very good, right? But when I read Finding Your Element, I found out right away that it wasn't for me. Why? Because it was giving me superficial advice. It was talking about how one of the things was, go explore different things. Although it is well meaning, I felt the information in the book to be not as deep. Because what I was looking for was an understanding of the soul. And the soul was hardly mentioned in the book. The general consensus around finding your purpose is often like this. It's often with this kind of approach. It's very superficial. There's discussions around passion, there's discussions about interest, trying new things out. But the thing that when comparing that to the code of the extraordinary mind, what I found where I resonate with the most here in this book was the fact that the author discussed the importance of going against the herd, the importance of meditation, the importance of following your soul, following your heart, the importance of deconditioning yourself from the conditioning that has stopped you from finding your purpose. This went much deeper into the psychology versus this being more about activities. And although these both included activities, what I understood from this one was that I needed to go deeper. There was a depth here. One of the good things that really resonated with me was the fact that the author, he talked about all aspects of life, making it a goal to not only improve in your finances or in your career or just in your relationships. It's about taking on a holistic approach, about making sure that as you evolve, so do all of these other aspects of your life. And now I understand that when you find your purpose, all of these aspects can align into one single thing, and that's really what the purpose does. When you find your purpose, all of your life aspects come together into one, and it becomes a very well-suited feedback loop, which everything just bounces off each other, and the energy that you put into one interest of your life will come back into another interest of your life. And that's a topic that I talk about in one of my previous videos around integral living. So it'll be up here if you guys want to check it out. And I go much more in depth with this topic. But understand, the main thing I want you to get out of this story, of these 2 books, is that Do not go for the superficial answers. You'll understand right away. If they're not talking about the soul, if they're not talking about deep psychological aspects, they're not going to really help you as much as they should. And maybe if that book helps you, then it just means that you're in the beginning stages of your journey. And hey, if you do take that advice, it's going to lead you to a deeper aspect eventually. So I want you to understand that there's levels to this. Okay, as you evolve and get deeper and deeper into your soul and passion, you're gonna throw everything that is not talking about the soul, that is not talking about spirituality. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about spiritual purpose, a divine purpose. We're talking about something that transcends the physical world. We're talking about something that transcends people's physical conditioning. All right. So if you want to get a head start, just like dive right into the meat of it, the bones of it, right? So that's my advice on that topic. I want to talk about now 3 key principles that will help you so much when it comes to finding your purpose. The first one is questioning and deconditioning. From what I found through my research around everything around this topic, around finding your purpose, is that there is a constant emphasis on questioning and deconditioning. Questioning being you constantly asking yourself, how can I serve people at the highest level? What is my deepest purpose? What is my spiritual purpose? Constantly asking yourself that and asking yourself different questions that can aid you in that process. You know, if you have to sit down and journal, you know, every single day and reflect on this question, then you do that and the answers come to you. It's a process of constantly questioning your reality also, which leads into deconditioning. Because when you start to question your reality, you also start to question the conditioning that has been instilled within you, the conditioning which has hidden your divine purpose, which has hidden your soul from you. The deconditioning process is also vital to discovering your purpose, because as you start to let go of all the ideas and beliefs and identities that you carried within you, you start waking up. As you start to do that, the answers start to come to you. In my journey, as I started to get closer and closer to myself, I was beginning to see shifts in my personality, shifts in my desires, shifts in my values, shifts in my questions. So as you start to gradually get deeper and deeper into yourself, the questions you ask keep going higher and higher in frequency. They keep going deeper and deeper in depth. Understand that once that happens, what you're seeing is a deconditioning process, which is also akin to the awakening process. And focusing on doing that, understanding that process is key, because if you have to understand that you're doing that and that that's happening, because if you don't understand that, then you won't think about the practices or experiences that you could put into your life to accelerate that process. So things that will help you with this questioning and deconditioning of the mind and the self will be meditation and self-reflection. Any of those practices around self-reflection will be of great use to you when talking about the questioning and deconditioning process. Now, the second principle will be healing and growth. The journey to your purpose is a journey of healing and also of growth. Because when you're healing, you're also growing. And a lot of people are using the word healing nowadays in the spiritual community, and that's fine and dandy, but I'm not about that life when it doesn't have a purpose, when it doesn't like serve any reasoning, you know, because a lot of people talk about how you can heal and that it's all, you know, it's a very emotional conversation. But to me, healing is more so about development than anything else. I want to set that straight. When you're in the healing process, what you're really doing when you're uncovering your trauma, healing from your traumas, doing the shadow work, what you're really doing is you're releasing a lot of the energies that you have trapped within you due to either the conditioning or the traumas that you've had in your life. So in spirituality, one of the biggest concepts that will serve you so much will be the concept of shadow work. We have shadow states, and then we have higher states above them, which are transcendental states. One of the systems that give a good framework on this is the Gene Keys system, where they talk about the shadow, the gift, and the city frequencies. So the idea is that if we have a specific aspect of our personality, that personality can sometimes, and most of the times for a lot of people, be in the shadow state, meaning that it is only at half its expression. It's not at its full expression. Just like there is a seed within people, the seed will grow and express itself completely different. The seed of the tree is not the tree. It is a lower expression, or it is just the beginning. And so when we dive and nurture that seed and start to heal that seed, it will develop into a whole tree, and that's the goal. So shadow work allows you to discover those aspects of yourself that need that work. And as you start to discover these aspects, you start to develop them, and then you're granted access to higher dimensions and higher realities. You're granted access to a higher version of yourself. It's a natural process of evolution. It's a natural process of expression and growth. So when you are able to catch the shadow in its shadow state and see it and feel it and then work with it and then express it and heal it, what happens is a natural understanding of who you are. It is a natural understanding of where you're meant to go. So I'll give a really good example, which is, for me, one of my shadow states would be the fear of expression, the fear of authenticity. I think this was a big one. I could see it in dance. If I was afraid to put myself out there because I didn't know, I was afraid I was going to get attacked. I felt vulnerable, but dance was a big thing for me. In working with my relationship to dance, I discovered higher and higher states of expression, and I realized that dance was one of my gifts. It was one of my ways to access my higher self. And now when I dance, I can enter the flow state very easily, and I get insights from my soul, and I get visions and higher understandings. But I would not have been able to get to this place where I'm at had I not worked with that shadow of mine. I also have more information on this specific topic in this video that I made. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in learning more about this specific process. I want to go into the next principle, which is the topic around exploration and taking risks. Because a lot of the times when people are talking about finding your purpose, they mention a lot about exploring and just going and putting yourself out there. And at the surface level, this is very superficial advice, but I will give you the reason why people give this advice and the deeper understanding of that, so that you can get to your objective, to your goal much faster. I've often heard, take risks, go out and do your thing, just keep exploring, and you will eventually find your purpose. And I think that that's okay, but at the same time, I think it's a weak response. I think that if you really want to go in and go at it 100%, what you want to do, and if you want to do it smart, you want to take calculated risks. But that also means that you're going to take conscious risks going towards the things that you fear the most. Where your fear lies is where your gift lies. This is also kind of coming from the idea of shadow work. If you face your fears, you will discover yourself at a much more resilient level. It's about building resiliency, but also unlocking your higher self. So as you put yourself out there, as you take those risks, as you explore, you discover different versions of yourself through challenge, through, you might even say, suffering. And you learn to deal with these challenges, and you learn to deal with the process itself. So now you are automatically building yourself up, raising your frequency, and giving yourself more tools to go out and serve people at a higher level, or you're at least getting closer to who you truly are. Something that this is very similar to is exposure therapy, which is a psychological treatment method for people who are dealing with specific phobias. They use exposure therapy where they expose them to the specific stimuli at a mild dose, and then they gradually expose them higher and higher to more of that same stimuli to the point where they get used to it and they see that their fear is not really warranted. They learn to deal with it. They learn resilience through the gradual exposure. So a practical tip for you would be, if you're afraid of something, start small. Don't try to go for those lofty, huge things. If you want to be a dancer, don't try to perform in front of like hundreds of people. Maybe you can perform in your own room and then just look at yourself in the mirror and slowly bring yourself out of that comfort zone. Another thing that I would like to share is the comparison, especially when it comes to taking risks. There's a comparison that I have used that is very easy to see. When people are taking psychedelics, for example, they are drugs, but they are also mind altering and life transformative. They can transform your life. But there's two people that usually take them. The first person is just trying to have fun, while the second person is taking it to learn more about themselves. And so they're both taking a risk, right? One is doing it for the adrenaline and the other one is doing it for themselves, for their growth. And so when we're talking about taking risks and putting yourself out there, do not just do it for the sake of doing it. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that could show you, something about yourself, but at that point you're just winging it and you're wasting energy, and it can even be dangerous at that point if we're talking about something like psychedelics or anything else related to that. So it's essential to take a calculated approach where you're doing your research, you're seeing how it would help you, how the specific thing can change your life, and doing it at a gradual and smart way. Like I mentioned when discussing exposure therapy. That's an example of a calculated risk, and the results are there. It's just a matter of doing it consciously. So that's one thing I want to leave you with, that you need to understand. In life, when it comes to growth, you can definitely take those risks in a way that is calculated, but is also beneficial to your own growth. So I'm gonna give you some practical steps to uncover your purpose, things that I've used that have served me very well. And the first one are psychological tools and spirituality. As I mentioned before, it's essential for you to understand that this is a spiritual journey, that you are going for the grand slam, you are going for the big bucks, as people would say. You want to find yourself. You want to find the deepest core of who you are. So that means you gotta go spiritual. You gotta take it. You gotta take that red pill and do it. Because if you don't, then you won't get anywhere. All right. So we're talking about meditation. We're talking about looking into tarot, looking into astrology, looking into the contemplative approaches, looking into spiritual philosophy, looking into psychology. Some really good tools that I've used have been journaling, meditation, psychology, personality tests. Those are extremely helpful. But I have also found so much help also from astrology. And there are some derivatives of that or similar tools as that, such as the gene keys and human design. These are all systems that I've used to discover my purpose. And when you take these things, you can start with personality tests just to get a hang of or get an understanding of how these tools work. But once you have dove into the world of personality tests, then you get into astrology, because you'll see that astrology is much more in line with your soul. There's one more thing I will also want to leave you with, which is the idea of having a vision. When you are going into your purpose, there's a vision that comes to you. And it's important to be receptive to that, to think about the ideal world, to think about what a paradise would look like on this earth and how you can bring that into reality. It's not about being delusional. It's about listening to your soul, because as you get closer and closer to yourself, your soul will speak to you and will give you images or sources of inspiration that will guide you to what you're really meant to do in this life. A good example of this will be The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's one of the most popular books in the world, and there's a reason as to why that is. It talks about a divine purpose. It talks about having a vision, going for a goal, and understanding that the universe is there to help you achieve that goal. So the purpose is a treasure, right? But as you go on that journey of your treasure, you evolve, you change, your reality transforms. And so you begin to have different desires, which will eventually lead to a whole completely different vision. So it's important to understand that as a man, especially, when you're looking for your purpose, you're also looking to receive a vision that will inspire you and drive you and push you to keep doing what you wish to do, regardless of what's happening around you, regardless of the people that you're coming in contact with. regardless of all the doubts that come up. The next thing that I also want to talk about, which is authenticity and culture creation. So it's essential to understand that you want to be authentic. You want to be real. You want to keep it as real as you can. You can't be something other than yourself. So there's a journey about being and speaking from your heart. And there's also a journey of creating your own culture, of creating your own movement, of connecting with people who are like-minded, of putting yourself out there and letting people know this is who I am. If you don't have a purpose and you don't know who you are exactly, then let that be your reality for some time. Let the world know I'm looking for my purpose. I'm in search of something divine. I'm in search of something deeper. And as you express that to you, the universe will bring you the people, the situations, the experiences that you need to keep on actualizing that goal to the point where you actually know what you need to do. And once you get there, then we'll talk about, we'll get to the next step. That's the next step in your journey. But those are some things that I want you to keep in mind. It's about having a vision. It's about being real with yourself. And it's also about letting people know that this is a movement. You know, this is a few month thing. This isn't some kind of self-help journey. This is a life commitment to something that truly matters. That's all I have for you. If you guys have more questions, I'm actually going to be creating more content around this topic. And if you are interested, make sure to sign up for my newsletter. That is where I give a lot of resources for people to get to know themselves, get to find their purpose, and connect with themselves. So check that out. The link will be in the description. Stay lucid. Peace.